It's a beautiful Wednesday morning here in Lagos. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. When renewed xenophobic attacks on Nigerians in South Africa began sometime earlier in the year, Nigerians were expecting that the federal government was going to take a louder and a more definite stance. And of course, we learned that the president was going to visit South Africa himself to meet with Cyril Ramaphosa. That happened alongside a lot of trade bilateral talks. But then the issue right now is that aftermath that much talked about meeting, we are still experiencing such attacks in the Rainbow Nation. Just yesterday, a second attack occurred, and we're told that South Africans renew attack on Nigerians injure 4. That's the top story, for instance, on the Daily Sun today. Business premises burned, and we're turning our attention to this very troubling and disturbing trend on the program this morning. I'm joined by publisher and social commentator Chuks Woko. Good morning, and thank you for finding time to come.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we seem to have had hope when earlier this month the South African president came up with lofty press release aftermath his meeting with the Nigerian president. For instance, he mentioned that he had set up an early warning mechanism through which the two countries, for instance, can share information, coordinate efforts, and act to prevent any reoccurrence of xenophobia in South Africa. But that isn't the case. Just yesterday, 4 Nigerians have been injured and we're told that their business premises burnt. How do you react to this?
It's just an indication that essentially that more needs to be done. I have never been impressed by the reaction of the South African government, especially at the highest level of government in South Africa, from the political party, from the former president Jacob Zuma, and even Ramaphosa himself, Cyril Ramaphosa, the current president. I haven't seen that strong action or initiative that was going to, make this impossible. It's just going to continue. Because if you do not allow justice, if you do not melt out a strong punishment, and if you do not show that you're a strong leader, you don't really get anything. You don't really achieve much. Now, what will solve the problem, maybe not entirely, is the fact that African nations and African leaders, we must begin to demonstrate very strong leadership. When we speak words, our words should carry power. And that's just bottom line, and that's what has made the difference between us and developed nations. They've learned how to act the word. They've learned how to live the word. When you punish people severely for what they have done, and I'm talking about justice. Justice that I mean is justice that is speedy, that is fast, and that is effective. That is justice. Because when you delay these things, and when people die, and it takes you 10 years, 20 years to bring people to book and all that, it just doesn't pass the enough message.
I get your point precisely. Let's talk about Mr. President's visit to South Africa a few weeks ago. Many thought that it was going to be some sort of a frank conversation between the two African leaders, given the way Nigerians have reacted to the attacks back at home. We reported some attacks on South African businesses here, but it was more or less like a friendly visit. As a matter of fact, it was about how both countries were going to strengthen their relations as regards trade and the commerce that has been between both of them. They extended the number of years for people who are willing to travel across each countries for business. There are some who would say that we expected more, perhaps some threats, so to speak, but on the contrary, it appears commerce is at stake. What are your thoughts along this line?
I mean, your colleague Michael Koche asked me it was almost a similar question and all that, and the question he asked was that people were critical of the visit, that he was not supposed to, it was an insult and all, and I said I saw it differently. I thought, well, if you're a leader, you will demonstrate that kind of thing. You will go and visit and show that you are an elder statesman, that you are a senior citizen, that you are more of a leader than you're a stronger leader than the person you're visiting now. And generally speak and encourage our citizens that. I thought that visit was whatever. But again, I told him that he was not strong enough because he ended up speaking to our citizens and all that. And the question that was put to me was, what should he be saying to them? And I said that I don't know what he'd be saying to them. What he would have done was to protect us here first. So when he's over there in South Africa, he'll be saying, I will protect you, I will take care of you. Now, this attack that happened, this present attack, is an indication that these people who do this thing are completely disconnected from the bilateral arrangement and all that. And like I've always said, if Nigeria is going to be respected in Africa, in West African coast, in Africa generally, we must have our citizens, our leaders, because we have enough brilliant people who are going to sit down and do what I have always said. We have what we call the power of unfair advantage. And at the time I started talking about the power of unfair advantage, it never occurred to me that we're going to have a gentleman who is going to, present his business assets. That's the man who owns a peace airline, and bring that to bear and begin to fight. I didn't even see it, but I have always known that we have assets, that we have that unfair advantage, and we can deploy it and all that. So when that happened, I mean, you saw how excited Nigerians were. You saw how that the world paid attention that there's a citizen. And you know what? We have many more people. So we need our leaders to sit down and ask ourselves, what do we have? For instance, we have people. The man who brought his aircraft, who took his aircraft to the place, and we have more people like that. We need to sit down and ask our people to go back to work. We need to have our politicians to realize that, when it's time to work, so that we can get out of poverty, so that we can have our people sitting here, so that these businesses that are here, you call them South African business, it's actually Nigerian businesses. Because, for instance, I eat and feed from one of such organizations, and I know millions of children this morning, before they went to school, they had cereal, they have going to have lunch after school. It's because their parents, their mothers and their fathers work in such organizations. Now we have to encourage our own people to ask them to build businesses where they can pay salary and pay pensions, and not taking the raw cash to go and buy prestigious items and prestigious homes in the United States and in other parts of the world. That's where we need to start, part of what we need to do. But we need also a leader that can stay in Lagos here or in Abuja and climb a podium and speak angrily and powerfully across board to all the people who are marginalizing our people and killing our people. Then the message will get to the grassroots. Because these people who are doing this thing, I mean, when they started attacking what you called South African businesses in Nigeria here, it was not you and I that was doing that. They are a population that's completely disconnected from the reality. The reality that we share with these South African people. So they troop into the street, not knowing the consequences of what they are doing, not knowing the ownership of these companies, and not knowing that their own brothers and sisters work in those organizations, and they went to the place to go and vandalize it.
And the way and manner that security agencies, clamped down on those protesters, some would say is also instructive that that's what perhaps we expected South Africa to have done.
No, but the mentality of, because I remember that I had an extensive interview with your colleague and all that, and part of what we observed was the image, the video clip of the deputy minister, inspector of police or minister of police, who was talking about how that, that it's not going to be allowed where you're going to have a location where you have foreigners outnumbering citizens and all that. And if you listen to what he was saying,
that clip
it wasn't
old,
as
but
yes, it wasn't. It wasn't actually in his own case. It wasn't actually xenophobia. It was outright fear of the future of the society where you're going to eventually have
foreigner
become mayor, becoming whatever, own the
president.
properties and all the children in that place and all that. So people have fears, and you need to deal with those fears and all that. Now, I think that that group of people who are completely disconnected from these realities, something needs to be done to drive home the message. And like you rightly pointed out, you saw how our own people, our own security officers dealt with our boys here. That cannot happen there because of the mindset of the people. They have a developed economy that was developed by the apartheid regime. And now they have not been able, in 25 years, you have a political party that have not been able to take that country to the next level. What you have right now is just going down. I mean, in Soweto, for instance, they've refused to pay an electricity bill. And Ekron is having problems, and he's had this problem and all that. So that African problem is in that place. So you're wondering, are you going to invite the minority?
But when we talk about the African problem, it is not exclusive to South Africa. Nigeria, for instance, they say, is the poverty capital of the world.
It is not.
And, well, according to what they seem to have peddled. But what I'm trying to say is that poverty is also a real challenge here in Nigeria. But we haven't started attacking foreigners who live here.
Yeah, but like I just told you, our people are living here in droves. Our people are constantly abusing our leadership, abusing our government. Just general negative energy and negativity that is just in the air and all that. So that if you are different from these negative energies, you are called name, you are called a member of APC, you are called a supporter of government. But people hardly remember nationalism. People hardly remember that I spent a larger part of my life developing my mind to a point where I can only be positive in the things that I do and I say, because this is where I was born and this is where I'm going to be buried. So I have my stake here, I have my family here, I have my children here. This is where my business is. Now, I might travel out, I might come back, but this is where my abode. Now, South Africans are saying the same thing. So when our people live here, because we are far away from home, there is that drive, that force, that determination to succeed. So the things we can't do here, we do it over outside, and we succeed.
We seem to succeed.
Yeah, I was speaking somewhere yesterday, and I kept talking about hustle, and I kept talking about work. There is something about work. There is no way you can work and not be rewarded. It's not impossible. There's something about work. So until we get our politicians to begin to work. Now, because you have served as a former, served as a member of House of Assembly, as a commissioner, and as whatever, politically speaking now, when you leave office, you generally become lazy because our economy has made our politicians and our leaders very lazy. So in the morning, instead of looking for something to do, you're paying this costly visit around and criticizing government in your state and all that. And I met a young man a few weeks ago in Obebi area and got talking, and he introduced himself to me as a former House of Assembly member. And I took one look at him. I'm like, you can just see physically the state that he's in. He's not economically, brilliant. So I think that's someone that we need to continue to preach. That you have served in government at a local government level, at a House of Assembly level, whatever. It does not excuse you from working. The latest business is that they gather together, they're paying visits to each other, and they're sitting down and doing these things that they're doing. Now, South Africans are doing the same things. The politicians in ANC, whose economy is basically also like ours, but it's on gold and other minerals. So every time there is increase in the market price of gold and the other minerals, the workforce in that country is always going on strike, demanding for increase and all that. They never consider these guys who are doing this thing to us. They are the ones that have been left out because they're not properly educated. They don't want to work. They don't want to do anything. So when our people go over there and all Africans go there, what do we do in that place? It's just basic economic activities. So they don't want to do it.
In identifying what the challenge really is, you recall that Cyril Ramaphosa mentioned earlier in October that this violence is fueled by misinformation spread on social media. I had a chat with the Deputy President of Nigerian Citizens Association in South Africa earlier. We're hoping that he would join us in the course of this program. But I want to quote him now. He said, like I did mention in one of my interviews, the problem is really not at the top and all between those multi-million companies or trades between the two nations. This is an economic problem, a struggle for meager resources between local South Africans in their local community and other foreign immigrants competing with them. So jealousy, envy, and hate steps in, and they use the prejudice and stereotyping tactic to label Nigerian as criminals. And according to him, this is the real problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I just told you. Our people live here. I mean, you go to the street of London, you see our own boys openly uniformed, and they are sweeping the street. You go abroad, you see Nigerians doing all kinds of things. But this South African thing, and what the man just sent to you, in the same South Africa, you have Nigerians who are at the highest level of economic activities in the telecom industry. I have the telecommunication company where I do business. They've had to take brilliant Nigerians from the Nigerian office to go and work in the South African office. I know a particular young man from Southwest. He's a good researcher. When he was discovered, he was just snapped up. I think he's back now, but he's been back, he's been to Harvard, because he's a very brilliant guy. They found him and they took him to South Africa. And the ICT guys that I know are family members who have been in South Africa for more than 30 years because of the fact that they are brilliant. Now, these guys are not being attacked. So he's correct. But we have Indians competing with us here. We have them competing with us at every side. We don't attack them.
Lebanese.
So is that Nigerian DNA, that Nigerian spirit that we carry, it's an ebullient spirit. You cannot deny we are loud, we're visible. You can't. I mean, you're walking in the street of a foreign land. Somebody speaks your local dialect. You just came, bros. You know, it's not whatever. Look, this Okada business that is going on now, that is well branded, OP or what is it called? It's the Chinese. The chin-chin that we've been eating since we were infants, the Indians have come and repackaged. Gari is repackaged. Our people don't see those things because things that are profitable, that are great and all that, they are close to you. We hardly see it. All we do is complain. But these Indians and Chinese people, they come here and they see it. The same way our people want to migrate and they want to live and all that. They go out there, they see these opportunities and they begin to do these things. I have people who look after old people in London.
That's right. And do the kind of jobs that they would never dream
do
to
here.
do here. But in the past few weeks, a month thereabout, we've seen over 400 Nigerians in South Africa return home. You mentioned the Airpeace boss who did a great deal of work and is being celebrated as a local hero. Do you see more of that happening? Seeing a situation where even after the meeting between both presidents, this issue is not subsiding.
Let me dwell a little bit on this president visit. You know, this thing that has just happened, if it was between America and any nation, it's just a simple statement that the leader of that nation will be. Now, right now, Africa has been yearning for strong leadership. It's just one person. Gaddafi tried to provide that kind of leadership. You just need one person who can. This thing has happened. You just need one person to come and make one statement that this is not acceptable. And maybe a phone call if you want to bother. And this thing that has happened, and right now I want that compensation that we are talking about and all that. Because if this thing we're doing cannot be felt at that level where these young people will sit up and all that, it's just a waste of time. What we need is leadership. Now, talking about the example of the man who put out his economic assets there to whatever, is the greatest PR that I ever seen in my entire life, coming out of Nigeria. When a man, and you know, at the time I started talking about the power of unfair advantage, I just know that we have it. Because, I mean, we have the population, we have people, we have resources, we have everything. Do you know that we have so many of such people that when push comes to shove, that you will see? So I think that what is remaining is just one person to galvanize that kind of spirit, and you will see. And what that man did is what has actually earned him what we're doing this December 7th. We are giving him an award that is called Compassionate Prize. We give this prize annually to people who provide that kind of leadership. It doesn't have to be a politician to earn it. You know, we have had people who have provided that kind of leadership in the banking industry. The lady who was the head of Federal Inland Revenue Service, I can't really pronounce her name, one Delta woman, the woman who revolutionized that agency. Those personalities, we have them. But what we need is that political leadership that can represent us at the highest level.
Let's talk about the impact of xenophobia on the economy of these two countries. Consider the two largest economies in Africa. As we speak now, more than 100 South African companies have investments in Nigeria. According to Ramaphosa, 1,700 of them have active trade relations in the country. And trade between the two countries was worth around 50 billion rands in 2018. And South Africa importing no doubt a significant amount of its fuel from Nigeria. We're going to get to details of that, but let's quickly turn our attention to Pretoria, I believe, where Oscar Mitwe is the National Deputy President of Nigeria Citizens Association in South Africa. He joins us now. Oscar, glad to have you on the program. So we spoke when President Buhari met with President Ramaphosa a couple of weeks ago. Help us understand what the situation had been aftermath this visit.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. In connection with the president's visit, like we said in the beginning, that this problem actually wasn't really more of the two countries or bilateral relationship per se at the top. Instead, what has happened is that the problem is more of economic, where you have the poor or the average, the low, struggling over a scarce resource. So the visit of Mr. President actually did help to calm some tension and then help to give us that dignity we're looking for as Nigerians. So, but I don't know how sustainable this can be and has been, looking at the recent incident that happened just yesterday.
Help us understand what happened yesterday. Certain business premises were burned, 4 Nigerians injured. Do you get to understand what the story really is?
The issue is this, because we spoke with the consulate who actually was on ground yesterday to assess the situation. What happened is that the taxi operators took laws into their hands in the name of they were fighting crime or fighting whatever they named it. But the position of the Nigerian Association is this: we have law in the land, and as a result, we have to follow through the law, and not individuals or group of people taking laws into their hands. I think this is criminal, and this should be condemned.
You know, my guest in the studio mentioned earlier the need for justice. Does South Africa has that track record when a crime like this is committed? Do we see suspects get arrested? Do we have culprits actually being charged to court for cases like this?
We're still following the incident that happened during the xenophobic attack in September. And this is one of our requests, that the government needs to match their words with action. So over 700 or 600 people were arrested. But we still yet to see who has been tried and who has been sentenced or punished for the crime they call criminality. So this is one way we feel that we will get justice when you say, okay, this is not xenophobic, these are criminal elements. Okay, fine. What happens to criminal elements when they commit crime? So this is where we need the government to raise the bar and assure Nigerians that we are safe and that we are welcome in this country.
So it is safe to assume that the reason why this problem festers is the fact that people commit crime and nobody really, arrests and nobody prosecutes. But you sent me a press briefing, a press release rather, on the 7th of October from the South African president when he mentioned certain steps that have been taken aftermath the Nigerian president's visit to South Africa. Have we heard from the South African government after these 2 attacks?
Currently, it's just the police authority that the consulate actually engaged with yesterday that kind of apologized and trying to say that the law will take its course. And our stand has always been clear. We always hear talks like this, but we want action where these elements are prosecuted, because I don't want anyone to justify crime. If anyone has committed any crime, that's why we have agencies of government to manage situations.
All right, thank you very much for your contribution. Oscar Meto is National Deputy President, Nigerian Citizens Association. Keep safe there in South Africa. Well, we need to join live transmission now from the 72nd General Assembly and 18th AGM of the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria. Of course, you know it's been hosted by yours truly, the TVC Communications. Of course, the program continues here in the studio, and you can watch out for the repeat later on. Let's talk about earlier. We're talking about the potential impact this is likely to have on the economy of both countries.
I think that Nigerians and a whole lot of us, Nigerians, are the greatest beneficiary of the economic relationship that we have with South Africa. Thousands, if not millions of Nigerians are engaged in these enterprises that are South African, that have South African origin. And for me, I'm always concerned about children. A lot of children go to school today. They feed and they wear clothes because their parents work in these organizations. And so, yeah, we're able to communicate today and have that competition going on in the area of communication because of the role that South African brands.
I'm sorry, let me hold you a minute. Please just hold that thought. Let's take this call from Ikeja. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning, Ifemi.
Glad to have you.
Good morning to Mr. Nwoko.
Morning to you, Judge.
I recollect, Nifemi, when this subject matter was discussed, I told Uncle Yori that I wasn't happy with the way the Nigerian government was playing the whipping boy with South Africa. How can citizens of my country be attacked in such, violent manner, killed, and not 1, not 2, not 10, not 20, and then my president is the one that goes to South Africa to be negotiating? They are the ones that have offended us, and they are the ones who should come to us to ask for forgiveness. You can see now that that visit has not achieved the desired result. The president of that country, I followed him during his campaign. He supports what these people are doing to Nigerians. He said during his campaign that he would discourage other African countries who come to South Africa for anything, like what is happening now. So what they are saying is different from what they are doing. Look at the case, the way the Nigerian government handled those who were protesting. So I recollect that somebody police killed one person.
Absolutely.
Why is South African government not doing the same thing? How many of the people who have been killing Nigerians have been arrested and dealt with in South Africa? That should tell you that the government of South Africa is complicit in this xenophobic attack. The Nigerian government should have taken a firm stance. It's not too late yet. Maybe we should drag them to the African Union and do something. But this type of friendly visit will not bring about an end to these attacks.
It's all right,
Thank
Judge.
you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Talking about the African Union, in the few months, South Africa is going to be taking over the chairship of the African Union.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We have a strong presence. We are a strong nation. I hope our people know that. It doesn't matter who is chair. What is important is that you are a leader and you know what to do. You can pick up your phone, mobilize against South Africa and assuming that position. Even when they're assuming that position, you can decide that, look, you need to get their attention and work against them. There are many ways to do these things. You can mobilize. We have friendly nations in South Africa. The other nations that are also have suffered these things from the South African people. So
right.
It's a question of knowing what to do. Politically and diplomatically, we can do a lot. We can get them to pay attention. Talking about justice, you need to understand the role that justice plays in this type of thing. If somebody is severely punished, or a few people are severely punished, and you set an example. I mean, we all went to school. I had a math teacher who flogged me one time. It wasn't because what I did, nobody had done it. But I think on that occasion, he just decided that he was going to set an example in this class. We were about 40-something, in that class.
If they don't do that again in school.
Exactly. It was not just about me. It was for all the students that next time any of you try this, and this guy, I will use him as an example. And it worked. That's how it is. That is how it is. Set an example with somebody and see whether they will do it. But you can't continue to do this. So, like George said, I think that this is a great opportunity that somebody will call Mr. President aside in Sochi and say, this thing happened again in South Africa, do something about it. Because once you leave it, to fester, you just create that lukewarm whatever, and, we lost quite a number of lives in that place. No nation can tolerate that. And if we're going to get other nations to respect us and respect our citizens, something needs to happen. And it needs to happen real fast.
Another way that some are looking at this is the impact we can have on other nations is limited, at least not as much as what we can do back at home. And then this perhaps should also open our eyes to the volume of our people, the number of our people who are seeking greener pasture outside the shores of Nigeria. Is that also a relevant factor in this matter? The fact that the economy back at home needs to be worked on so that less Nigerians...
I want to be very, very sincere to you. I have thought about this thing for such a long time. Fortunately for me, I have had the opportunity of going outside. And I know that this place is better for me. If I had gone abroad when I was younger and all that, fine. During last week, I was at a popular shopping mall in Ikeja here, and I met a guy who used to service my AC and all that. He's very good. So I noticed he was wearing a T-shirt with a company, and I was like, he stopped me, he greeted me, and said, I work in this company. And I said, why? Because I know he's very good. He said he needed to work now and that he's on his way to Dubai, and he wants to, if not Dubai, he called somewhere else that he will be appreciated. I said, to go and do what? And he explained to me. I said, you better not try it. So he took my phone number and he called me, and I explained to him. I said, not at this age, and you're better here. Now, I've just said all that to say this. People, especially young people, because I was like that, we always think that it's greener on the other side. It is not. Let's take the United States, for example. America has its own economic setbacks and all the challenges that they have. But you don't have their citizens,
jumping around the world. Yeah,
jumping around to Europe and all that and all. What they have that we don't have is that they have a social, this social network, safety net, where they take care of their citizens. But it's other citizens that are not in those safe nets. That are paying the tax.
Yes.
That are contributing to taking care of this. And that safe net, our friends, Americans, black Americans, who tell me that for generations they've been in this safety net, that they are tired of it, that it's a cost, and all that and all that. So, but here, what are you going abroad to do? So go, when you go. But by the way, the millions of Nigerians that are outside here, who out of shame can't come back, because they have gone out only to find out that it's not what they thought.
Let me hold you for a minute, because it is quite debatable as regards whether life is better outside than it is here. And there are people who would tell you that
life is better outside.
If you look at the revenue, the billions of dollars that Nigerians send back to the country, it is a testimony that they're doing fantastically well.
Oh, they are.
But let's take this call from Okorafo in Arochukwu. Hello, Okorafo.
Good morning, Mr. Inepemi. Good morning, our guests in the studio.
Good morning to you.
Honestly, you see, when people talk about the South Africa, you see, look, the problem with South African indigenes have been written on their faces. That is to say frustration. Now, when you look at the people, the way they behave this time around, you see that the aggressiveness is going higher. Let me give you an example. When the election brought President Cyril into the office, they will interview people there. Some of them say, life, not a question of life. They say that they are tired of all this government party, one particular party and others, because let's vote them in. Let them continue ruling, because no matter whether they come in or they come, it should be the same thing. Now, that is to show, before the election and during the election, after the election, they have concluded that let's move on. Anything they see, they take. Now, what do we learn from there? As a Nigerian stays there, what I'll tell them is that those of them who are staying in the slums should see how they can migrate and go to urban areas and stay no matter the cost. Instead of, because the more you stay in the slums, if people that stay in the slums, frustration have been written there, they have not that to carry their anger on you who is moving forward. Okay, my brother said one that said, look, if you are staying in an environment and you have come to build a very big mansion and people are managing to live that you die there because people there that will much they frustrate you. Better go and see where your mates are chopping glass and fix yourself, not to come to the slum because you need 5 people houses or 5. Because Nigeria, no matter what we say, no matter what we do, they have made up their mind. Those of them who are asked to deal with Nigerians and other South Africans, because right now they feel that people that are coming there now have collected what that belongs to them.
Okay.
So they have no other obsession to carry their anger on them, so that they leave those things allegiance, not to abandon property. So the area Nigerians learn, or other African countries learn a lesson from what is happening now, the better for them, because the issue of managing will not work. Find your way out from that slums and look for another place. That's very much have a blessed day in Lagos.
Thank you so much for calling in. So let's get back to this issue of...
Look, you're talking about money that's being sent back home.
Yes, because let me give an example. A cousin of mine who's lived in Canada for many years, I'd been trying to call me recently, and then he called me and we had a very long conversation. The summary of it is, when are you coming over to Canada? They would tell you stuff like, if not for you, for your children. I mean, are you not concerned about the educational structure in Nigeria? I'm talking about the infrastructure itself.
Okay.
That is what is tempting people to leave.
Yeah, I agree with you. But what they do not tell you is that they pay the bill for those things. What did they tell you? Why he's asking you to come is because maybe he is advantaged and all that. He's not telling you about other people in that Canada that are not being able to join him at that level where he is. What he has failed to tell you is the dollar. That hard currency, $1 is almost 400 naira here. So if you're able to make it there and you work hard and all that. Now, I know a friend of mine who lives in Houston. Her house rent is paid from here. She will not let her come back here. Lost everything she labored for here for 30 years. The children are scattered all over the place. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, that place is a beautiful place. I was sick some time ago. I had issues with depression. I didn't even know what it was. I just thought, what am I doing here? Let me just move it around. I didn't even know that moving from your present location to another location is a cure for depression. I just traveled. Now, going to that place and seeing all those greeny environment and light and all that, that's what cured me. I didn't even see any doctor. The place is beautiful. But the whole of that beauty that you see, if you do not get into the system, you are in trouble. You will be in the street. Now, like I always say to my friends, if you enter the city of New York and you walk through the streets towards where you have all those tall buildings and all that, Times Square and all that, it has the highest collection of crazy people, mentally deranged people in the street. It has the largest number of beggars. Now, what they present to you and I on television
it's different from
the
reality.
Media is different from reality. I've been I missed my flight once when I was doing a local trip because the road to JFK was broken and they were fixing it. The Ajagula is far better than some part of that place. Now, as a young person, you don't see all that. All you see is the basketball, the music, and all that, and that's what you see. And I appreciate that. Now, it has the power of the media. Those other young people over there, they don't have the opportunity to see our own information. Because as far as they are concerned, that's the last word. But that's not to say that our people who started going to America in 1970s, 1971, 1972, 1973, up to 1973, during the Udoji, whatever, our professionals who went to Texas very early, they have settled in, went to Texas Southern University and settled down. Those days they went with 78 naira. My brother John, if you see his international passport, you will see it at the back. He went with 78 naira. Went in there, labored and all that. But the problem is, will he be willing to come back here? No, he's already used to that system. He knows the value of $1 and he's not ready to play around with it. Now, what we have done to ourselves here is that everything we've been blessed with, we've minimized it, we've disrespected it. That place is beautiful. Here, it's not beautiful. Let's work at it. Let's pressure government to provide roads for. Look at the way Lagos is. Provide light in the streets so that people can drive at night. Provide roads so that we can drive whatever. Now, you talked about school. I completely disagree with you. My niece is a medical doctor in Atlanta, Georgia. Very powerful one at that. She went to Uniben. She's not owing school fees. All these other people who went to school in the United States, 30 years after, they've not been able to pay back their student loan.
I get your point.
No, you don't get my point. I have children who went to University of Lagos, just graduated about 2 years ago. They are brilliant. You know what? They just got jobs.
I understand the patriotism that is driving your submission. And I also buy that idea. I understand the fact that the best of us have to stay back to build this country. But the reality as it's, you talked about the medicine.
Do you know that this society that you're talking about was not actually built by only government?
Medical practitioners,
their citizens.
I understand you perfectly. Medical practitioners in Nigeria, for instance, are complaining about brain drain. They would tell you that it is lucrative to do their job outside here than here. My friends, a couple of people that I know who have traveled out, you will be surprised that it is even the middle class. I mean, the people who you look up to, who you assume are doing better than you are the ones who are considering leaving this country. Shouldn't that be a worry? Because when you talk about the rule of the citizenry, you need direction from government. There's also a limit to which the individuals. You need direction from government.
Really?
You need to see government at work. You need to see responsible leadership at work. That is what inspires citizen participation in government.
I don't know about that. What I know is that the role that we need to play in holding government accountable and all that, we're already doing that. Social media, everybody is about, I don't dispute that. And we've been doing that. But when I was growing up in the town where I come from, the market there was built by local women. They contributed money. Secondary school was built by the locality. Everything we have in that community, they just go around and mobilize and all that. It took a long time for me to realize that, oh, you can hold government accountable, or there's even a government and all that. I went to secondary school. It took how many years to afford 100 naira until Ambrose Ali came, who was a member of UPN in the Southwest here. He brought it to us in Dembende State and all that. So, but this United States, let me use it as an example. There's a brand called Starbucks. Starbucks was invented or created by a guy called Howard Schultz. Look, iPhone that they're using in Nigeria here today. One man, a Syrian boy born by an American woman called Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs happened to even be the name of the man who adopted him. That's not the name of his father. This man who took him in from birth, because the father will not take him, the mother will not take him. He created, what's it called? He created iPhone and that brand. Names like that, Bill Gates. Well, Bill Gates is different because he comes from a very rich home. So, Xerox, all these institutions are individuals who build. That's what we need our big men to do for us. Build stuff that our children can be employed, institutions where our children can come and work. Develop our community. Walmart is owned by individuals. Do you understand what I'm saying? We need to develop our own country. So if you call it patriotism, that's what it should be. These guys built that society that we are all trooping into. By the way, for you who is going abroad, let me tell you a story. I have 2 cases right now that I'm dealing with of young, misguided Nigerians who left their good jobs in the banking industry to go and live abroad. And of course, when they were going, they took a lot of money. Today, shame will not allow them to come back. They've lost everything. They can't fit into the system.
I understand that.
You understand that?
But you see, I get your point precisely, but I'm also telling you that for that Nigerian, there's another Nigerian story of someone who left here and who is doing fantastically well.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, when they left was in the 70s. I have a woman from Anambra State.
Yes.
Where you have that shrine. That's the town where, because we're very good friends. She was a nurse in Enugu State. Left in 1971 to the United States. Got to the place, started practicing nursing. Eventually realized that she has a great opportunity. Studied pharmacy. Today, she's a very rich woman. I know what they have here. But these guys that you're talking about that are doing very well, they are doing fantastically well because they are working extra hard, because they've realized that $1 is almost 400 naira. So they can raise like 5,000, 10,000, $20,000 and bring it here, and it will be a lot of big money. And Nigerians here are seeing that, and they want to go do the same thing.
I think we can
and some of them are arriving late.
Yes.
Some of them are arriving late. So that's the point that I'm making. I can't go there now at this age. If you want to risk it, I wish you were. But my advice to you is not to try it, because if you concentrate on what you're doing here.
I think we both agree that it is important that we focus on building a nation such that it is attractive to young Nigerians
Absolutely.
to stay back. And my point is that we need leadership that inspires.
Absolutely.
For instance, there are Nigerians who would tell you that, what has this country given back to me as an individual? I generate
It
power.
is not about what this concept
for
of your
instance
generation.
now-
Hello.
Yes.
Before you were born or after you were born, maybe you have forgotten. Maybe they thought you've forgotten. It's about what you can give. That's why I gave the examples that I gave.
You are right, absolutely. There's no doubt. For instance, this issue of a minimum wage. You know, we've had conversations as regards the fact that how much is given to the average worker is not as important as the infrastructure that he has to deal with. And I think we can both agree to the fact that perhaps the issue in South Africa is also calling the attention of government
Absolutely.
and the people inclusive to focus on building a nation and making it attractive. But let's move on very quickly as we begin to, tidy this up. Now, we have a situation in our hands where Nigerians appear to be persecuted, not even only in South Africa. We have reported cases of Nigerians killed in China and in other parts of the country. What stance would you see the country, our government, take at this time as regards speaking for Nigerians who live outside?
First, you don't even need to speak first. You need to act first. Protect your people. You know the number of people that have died during the course of the year. Let's not even talk about last year. That is seen and heard and read by people all over the world. So you need to start by protecting your people, by providing for your people. This is what we're saying to government. We also need to speak to ourselves, which I tried to do with you just now. We have a role to play. But that is the role of government, to protect and care for the people. When you do that, you become a compassionate leader. Now, when any government or any institution or any body does any harm to your citizen, you don't even do so much. You speak. You will speak and send a strong word that you want an accountability, you want this and all that, and take an action.
What do you think has been holding government back from doing precisely that? Because we haven't seen the federal government do that in the case with South Africa.
Let me be out of humility say that sometimes I think that we just haven't been blessed with that complete, brilliant leadership that is strong. That's my ignorant stake. That's what I have seen. We haven't just been blessed with that one man who understands the dimensions of what we're talking about. What is compassionate leadership? What is strong leadership? Who is able to demonstrate courage? Do you understand what I'm saying? You need demonstration of courage. That courage must start by that kind of thing that is about to happen when you are saying go and probe NDDC. When that happens and you take it to another sphere, and you deal with corruption, all these big men who are stealing our money and all that, and you're able to discipline them, and people will begin to take it. So then you harness that money that you have taken from them, provide good roads, solid roads, provide lights, so that there will not be accident on the highway, so that economy will not be a sleeping economy. It can be active at night and active at day. All complete leadership that can read. If I have to know about China, it means that I have to go and register with Henry Paulson Institute or buy his books. Why? Because he spent 40 years living and working in China, taking Merrill Lynch and whatever to that place. So you acquire knowledge by dealing with men and women who have gone out there to acquire that practical experience. I can buy the books. I can register online. I receive newsletters. So I have this knowledge. That is what we need. I haven't really seen that and all that. The type of thing that Trump is doing, I am a lover of Trump. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right now, things are wrong and he is facing it. Now, you don't have to like his character and all that and all, but there's a force behind him that will make him to take on anybody. What is he doing to China? Do you know what he's doing to China? He's doing it on our behalf. China has developed its economy to a point where it's an export-oriented whatever. You can't even try to print, make toys or make Ankara here and compete with what is being imported. That is a threat to global economy. And we're dealing with leaders who don't understand the dimensions. So that's my answer to you. I hope that I am right. But if I'm not right, that's my little knowledge of what I think needs to happen. You need that type of thing that Trump is doing in that place. He basically think that he might be riotous in his attitude and another, but he's passionate about his country, and you dare not do anything that he does not agree with. He will come after you. For a man to stand up to against China and engage in trade war with China, go and see what is happening to China's economy, and they want to have a deal with him. Why? He understands the dimensions. Is he an economic professor? He is not. He's just a businessman who loves his country, who has done so much investment and has been around for a long while.
We look forward to better days ahead. Publishing social commentator Jackson Walker, thank you very much for finding time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Shedding more light on this issue for us. So a lot of talk is being mentioned now as regards the need for Nigeria to diversify its economy. We see the closure of land borders and the fallout of that, even for the diversification that is being talked about now. The ECOWAS treaties that we're signatory to is also being mentioned as regards the fact that Nigeria might have to think outside the box to be able to forestall all of this issue. After all, there are more illegal land borders than the one that is shut down. And just on the news yesterday, we reported that illegal goods smuggling is still ongoing, irrespective of the shutdown on these borders. So we look forward to reporting the steps government would take as regards xenophobic attacks, and we'll be back subsequently to talk more on that. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Thank you for joining us on the program today. God bless Nigeria.